Welcome, everyone. My name is Tom Hyland. I'm the U.S. Ambassador for the Consorzio I Vini del Piemonte, and welcome to the fifth in our series of 5 what we call top cluster webinars, which are designed to promote the best producers and the best wines of Piemonte. Before I introduce our panelists today, I'm going to let my colleague Giulia Navarra from the Consorzio say a few words about what we're going to do today. Giulia, prego.
Thank you very much, Tom. So I'm a little bit emotional because this is the last one. So we will end this digital travel that we had the chance to live with the precious help of Tom Island. So I hope it has been interesting for all of you. It has, for us, it's very important as a consortium that represents more than 230 producers all over Piedmont to speak about different regions of our amazing land, because we have so many vines, so many grapes, so many producers, so many appellations that are important to present and to understand well where and meet the producer and listen to the stories that are presented. So I hope this has been a good chance. Our top cluster project is a project that involves not only our producer, but also other producers from Piedmont. The important thing is that they are important producer and representing our appellation and our region. So thank you very much to Tom, and I hope to see you soon in the next year, maybe in presence, hopefully. But in this case, we will go on online because Tom has made an amazing job. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Giulia. Today's topic is very, very specific. We like to use the term masterclass these days. So this is truly a masterclass. I think of when I went to college, and many of you can agree with me on this. I don't know how it works in Italy, but you have different levels of classes. For example, if you could have chemistry or biology 100, 200, 300, as the case may be. This is sort of Barolo 300. This is not the beginning class in Barolo. This is a very specific advanced class in a topic that is very, very specific. We're looking at the difference between Barolo from the commune of Morra and the commune of Serralunga d'Alba, which are two very, very different wines, two very different styles of Barolo. Before we get into that, let me introduce the producers today. So we have 2 from each commune. First, from Morra, we have Tiziana Settimo from Aurelio Settimo Winery. Ciao, Tiziana.
Hi, buongiorno.
Okay. And also from Morra, we have Alessandro Locatelli from Rocche Costamagna. Ciao, Alessandro.
Ciao, ciao, Tom.
From Serralunga d'Alba, we'll go with ladies first. We have Veronica Palladino from Palladino. Ciao, Veronica.
Hi, Tom. Ciao.
Ciao. And finally, we have Paolo Manzone from the Paolo Manzone Winery Meriame in Serralunga d'Alba. Ciao, Paolo.
Ciao. Ciao.
Okay. We have an hour today, as we do with all the webinars, and we have 4 producers today and not 6, so we don't have to rush it. Everybody can have enough time to talk. I'm going to start by giving out a statement, sort of a mission statement here, the conventional wisdom as to why we chose these 2 communes. I mean, Barolo from anywhere is a very special wine, but we're looking at 2 of the largest communes in the Barolo zone out of the 11 communes, and also 2 that have a very different characteristic in their style of Barolo. And without taking too much time, I'll just mention this very quickly, and then I want to get the opinion of all of you. But when we talk about Morra, this is on the western part of the zone. These have younger soils. And again, this is a general statement. The soils differ in each vineyard. But generally, these are younger soils that are called Tortonian. And because they're younger, the roots don't have to go as deep. And so generally, the Barolos from Morra tend to be a little more approachable when they're young. They also have a little bit more floral aromatics. So they're certainly structured for the long haul, like with most Barolos. Depends on the producer, depends on the vineyard. But these are a little more approachable as compared to Serralunga. Serralunga is on the eastern part of the Barolo zone. And these have older soils, which have traditionally been known as Helvetian. I think now they're more referred to as Serravalian. These are older soils. And so the roots have to go much deeper. You get stronger, more firm tannins. These are wines that are not as approachable when they're young, but given time, maybe 15, 20, even 25 years in the best vintages, the wines start to show their true complexity. Some people would call this the classic Barolo. I guess it depends on what your style is, where you're from. People from the Morra probably wouldn't call them classic Barolo, but this is definitely when people think of Barolo and ageability and cellar potential and a very powerful style. Serralunga is the classic example of that. So, Tiziana, what would you agree with that? Everything I've said?
Yes, sure. I agree. And speaking about Rocche dell'Annunziata, this Marine and Tortonian origin is giving to us this special soil that is clay limestone and blue marl with the high content of magnesium oxide. So this special ground is giving normally wines that are, as you told, much more approachable at the beginning. They are powerful, yes, but they have even a lot of elegance in tannins. So really easier to drink in the first year's bottling than sometimes Serralunga.
Okay. Tiziana, your volume was going a little bit soft there for a little bit, so if you could pay attention to that. We hear you fine, but a few moments it was a little bit. Okay. Thanks. Yeah, Alessandra, okay. What did you think about the statement I have? How would you describe La Morra Barolo? And I should mention that, we're talking about La Morra today. We happen to have two producers that signed up for this that both make wines from Rocche dell'Annunziata. So that's clearly, we'll talk a lot about that, but there are clearly many other great vineyards in La Morra as well. Alessandra, what are your thoughts on that?
Thank you, Tom. I think that La Morra has a really different soil and in different parts because the commune is so large. 30% of total Barolo comes from La Morra, and the Rocche dell'Annunziata is a little bit unique parcel for a lot of particular tasting that has, and we have other two parts very, very important that are Brunate and the Cerrecchio that are part in La Morra and a part in a little part in Barolo. They are very, very different. I think that the soil is completely different and the characteristics are very, very different. In Rocche dell'Annunziata, Tiziana and I, we are very, very close in the similar area, and the soil is a little bit younger, sure, that is 6-8 million years old. And then I think that something that is really unique for Barolo producing Rocche dell'Annunziata is the balsamic sensation. Yes. Softer tanning and the balsamic hints that you can find in the wine when it's young. But when the wine is aging more and more, you feel a little bit more this sensation that is a little bit unique, I think.
Yes, I tasted your Prico Francesco 2013 Reserva, which we're going to talk about today. I definitely noted that balsamic character in the wine. Let's talk a little bit, and since both of you are on Rocche dell'Annunziata, we have a little treat in a few minutes. Tiziana told me yesterday, she showed me a little video from a drone. Yes. And we'll take a look at your vineyards in Rocche dell'Annunziata. I have one member.
Yes, I need that. Yeah.
Okay.
You wanted that I show the.
Yeah. We'll do it in a few minutes, Tiziana. We'll do it in a few minutes.
Okay.
So we'll wait. Let me get the comments from Veronica and Paolo. So I also got one little comment here from someone watching talking about that they get a little cinnamon in some of the wines from Rocche dell'Annunziata as well. So, Veronica, tell me about Serralunga and the initial statement I made. How does Serralunga differ from La Morra?
Yeah, Serralunga is it's completely different from La Morra. Also, the soil, we are in the oldest geological era of the entire area. So we have this calcareous and clay soil, very compact, especially in the south part of the village of Serralunga, because there's also big differences between the north part and the south part of Serralunga. In the north, we have a little bit small percentage of sand that is missing in the south. So usually the wine that came from the south part of Serralunga have this structure that bring a lot from the minerality of the soil. So we have this earthness that we can feel feel in the wines. So this characteristic, of course, the wines have a big complexity, need more time to be ready, need a bit time to be softer, and but of course represent this big structure. In the north are a little bit more softer. Maybe sometimes they remember a little bit more the wine from La Morra, because there's some geological era that arrived from La Morra in the south, in the north part of the village of Serralunga, and this sand give a little bit more saltness to the wine. So usually that one from the north are a little bit more salty at the end. I give the example, for example, regarding my wine, the Parafada and the Ornato, that are these two single vineyards, that one is in the north, the other one is in the south, but are completely different. Also, if the way of vinification, of aging is exactly the same, the wine are completely different, because the soil gives completely different characteristics to the wine.
And the Parafada is the one that's further north, and Ornato is south, correct? Okay.
Yeah, are both south exposition, the vineyards, but the Parafada is located in the north part of the village, so the first arriving from Alba, to understand, and the Ornato is in the south, going in the direction of Monforte. So also are 2 kilometers far, but give two completely different wine, because the Parafada have this elegance, these notes of flowers, this quite sweetness and saltness. The Ornato is completely different, is powerful, is earthy, is have completely different note compared to the Parafada. There's less elegance in some way, but it's a wine that needs more time to be ready to drink.
Yes. Okay. Paolo, tell me about your most famous vineyard at your estate. It's called Mariame. We're looking at vines that are like 65, 70 years old, if I'm correct. Tell me about that particular vineyard, the terroir of that vineyard, and how Serralunga. We're going to talk about your comune di Serralunga Barolo today. So tell us about that wine as opposed to La Morra, and tell us specifically about Mariame.
Yes, it's very, very interesting to compete to Mariame and Serralunga for practically the vineyard really is the same. Is making the Mariame area, is in the north part in front to Castiglione Falletto. But is very, very important to looking the extremely flexible character of Barolo for the really the same soil in the two different wine. With the Mariame vineyard are 70 years old, and the 70 years old vineyard produce a very, very low quantity, natural quantity of grapes, and the concentration, the character of the grape is so complex and so strong. And really in the same place is you have the vineyard of Serralunga, is the vineyard about around to 25, 30 years old, and with the same soil, the same grapes, and is make a really different character in the wine. For in the Serralunga you have a more elegant, soft character, but Mariame is a really expression of the soil with the old vineyard. In the old vineyard is a small quantity grapes that make a very, very strong concentration, and the tannin character is exploded in the very well character. But in any case, it's not only the character of the soil and the character of the wine is so different. It depends the same of the vintage. For the real interesting character in the Barolo wine is the same. The microclimate is the characteristic of the wine with the special weather, and in this case is put in analysis the 2016 vintage. The same in the old vineyard 2016 is a make a very, very strong character, but the expression is a more softer, more complex, but a really complex, soft and sweet complexity. Is a really different than other special vintage with the microclimate is different. For example, 17, 15, 13 is a very, very different vintage than 16 and 12 and other vineyard similar to 16. And this is one of the wonderful character of the Barolo. And the Nebbiolo character is very, very similar to Pinot Noir character in the Burgundy area. For the really, each soil, each characteristic is different, but not only with the soil, but depend of the characteristic of the weather and the mix, the characteristic like microclimate and the micro characteristic of the soil of the vineyard is make a very unique situation every year, every vintage, and create a very, very unique character in the wine every vintage. And this is one of the fantastic characteristics of Barolo wine.
Okay, thank you. I agree. Last week we did a webinar just on 2016. Veronica was with us, and all of the producers agreed that this really was a very special vintage, and that you mentioned how soft the wines are and how approachable they are. And they're not as powerful, the tannins, as they would be in certain vintages, and there's much more elegance and persistence. So that's something I think we can all agree upon. And several of the wines we're going to talk about today are from 2016. Let me mention, Tiziana will show your video in just a minute here, but let me mention first this word called terroir, which is, I think, overused today. Everybody who wants to write about wine loves to use the word terroir. And
Yes.
I think it's something that should be reserved for only a few wines. Certainly the term evolved from Burgundy, the Grand Cru Burgundies, the Premier Cru Burgundies, the wines of the Côte d'Or. And it helps explain why does a wine from one village, even though it's made, just a few kilometers away from another village, and they're all made with 100% Pinot Noir, why do they taste so different? So terroir, in its large meaning, its wide umbrella meaning of soil and exposure and elevation and rainfall and many, many other things.
And if we are speaking about Rocche dell'Annunziata, for example, simply a cru, an MGA, but this is really big because the extension is 30 hectares shared now between more than 20 wine growers. I don't know if we are 22 exactly, but it's not only the soil, it's not only the ground, but really important is the microclimate and even the altitude. Alessandro, for example, own higher vineyards, so the altitude of his vineyards.
Okay, you got to watch your microphone. Your volume is going in and out. Okay.
I don't know what's happening. It's giving to me that it's working.
Well,
is it okay now?
It fades out. Okay.
Yeah, but now it's okay.
That's fine. Thank you.
It's good.
That's fine. Thank you.
Okay, great. Sorry, I have problem today. I cannot understand why. Anyway, it's not only the soil, but even the altitude of the vineyards. For example, in our Rocche dell'Annunziata, we own 10%, so 3 hectares and almost half. And in these 3 hectares and almost half, we have different altitude in our vineyards. So from 250 to 270 meters on the sea level till 320. Alessandro's, I think you are higher, I think is around 400 meters. So it's not only the soil, it's the altitude, the microclimate that is giving to us differences in the wine. So the terroir is something that is given from more than one thing. It's a complexity of things, of microclimate, altitude, the soil, the ground, that change. Even in our vineyards in Rocche dell'Annunziata, for example, the lower part that we can see later in the video is the really dry soil that is in depth, is really blue marl, a stratified soil of marine origin that is not absorbing water. And this is in our vineyards for 1 hectare and almost half. But then in the higher part, in between 270 and 320 meters, is simply a soil that is clay, but there isn't this blue marl in depth. So it's really, really big differences.
Okay, thank you. Mike, one question also was that generally vineyards in La Morra are planted at a little bit higher. This is for everybody, at a little bit higher elevation than you would find in Serralunga. Am I correct? So is that, are we looking at a difference of style because of that, or is it more because of soil? Alessandro, Alessandro, what would you say?
We have a vineyards in La Morra a little bit in a higher position. Also, in our case, Rocca dell'Annunziata, we are between 320, 350 meters is one of the highest point in Rocca dell'Annunziata. We have also vineyards in La Morra over 400, 420, where Nebbiolo grows well, that now we are growing Nebbiolo for Langa Nebbiolo at this altitude. And then I think that is one of the highest point in Barolo area. And then I agree with Tiziana that Rocca dell'Annunziata is a big parcel with a different exposure, different soil a little bit. Is always Marne di Sant'Agata fossili, but with a different origin. And then the wine are a little bit different. And then in our case, we are a little bit higher. Our exposure is south, southeast. And then our harvest time is usually 1 week after Tiziana, that has a little bit lower position, and the ripening is a little bit early. And the characteristic of the soil are different. Our soil keep a lot of water inside, and then that's very nice, but sometimes need a little bit more time for perfect ripening. And during the year, we understood a little bit the potential of this soil, and we decided to do the harvest a little bit later, also for our reserva that is produced in the highest point of the property, the Bricco Francesco.
Okay, Paolo, the Mariame is at 350 meters above sea level?
Yes. Around to 330 meters and 360 meters. And this is very, very important. The same, the quality of the soil in one of the big difference, the same of the cru of La Morra and the cru of Serralunga. The cru of Serralunga is quite very, very small. For example, I have more than 60% of the total area or Mariame cru. And in the Mariame cru, the same is a little difference in the soil. Is the soil is more clayey and calcareous, more in some part more calcareous, and really is very, very interesting to put the idea of to put the small cru is more difficult for they have too much. Probably have too much cru in the small area, but in any case, it's very, very interesting to make very, very good focus in the microclimate and the soil. And not only this, for the big difference with, for example, in very, very close area with Parafada and Mariame, really the position in line in the distance is very, very short. It's around 200 meters. It's 150 meters, but the exposition is different. And for example, Mariame is in the south west position, and really with the soil, and the microclimate, the exposition change really the characteristic of the wine and the characteristic of maturation of the grapes. And really one of the very, very good important things is pick up the grapes in the real good moment for in case you pick the grapes too late in the hot vintage, like the 17, is create a little over maturation. One time, really 20 years ago, I started to make wine in the 99 in the Mariame, and looking for Mariame a little over maturation in the grapes. For sometimes the real maturation is very, very late. And now it's impossible to pick up the grapes in the late harvest or a little late. For the weather in the 20 years changed a lot. And really now is very, very important to pick up the grapes at the real good moment of the maturation. For the perfect combination with acidity, full body, physiological maturation, for the color, tannin, and all of the characteristic is balanced. In case is pick up the grapes 1 week or 3-4 days late, sometimes the balance is not so perfect.
Right.
And this is very important. In the last 5-6 vintage, the situation changed a lot. You need to pick up the grapes in the real right moment. Sometimes it's not really simple.
Right. Okay. Veronica, Ornato what is the elevation of that vineyard?
So the highest part is 400 meters.
Okay, that's very high. Okay.
Yeah, it's quite high. Yeah, because going in the south part of the village, we go a little bit up. So another thing that I think that Serralunga is a little bit different comparing La Morra, the shape, of course, because it's this long greenhouse, like the name say. But the things that the vineyards create this small amphitheater, so are very close. So inside the vineyards, like you can see in the Parafada, like you can see in the Ornato, so there are this small amphitheater, and inside there's a special microclimate. There's no wind, and so this is also something that gives differences on the wines comparing La Morra, that is a little bit more open. Also in La Morra they have the amphitheater, but it's a little bit more open comparing Serralunga that are a little bit more straight. So I think that this is something also very particular from the village.
Okay, yeah, I think that. Thank you. I think that's important to mention about the wind, because Nebbiolo is not generally planted that high. I mean, you can have Dolcetto planted very high because the berries might shatter with a lot of wind, and I know that's traveling throughout the Barolo zone over the last 20 years. I've noticed, that more and more trees are being cut down. There are not as many forests as there used to be, and of course the forests are important because they serve as windbreaks. And the more open land there is, that's not necessarily good. It's fine down in Doliani where they plant Dolcetto. That grape is perfectly suited for the wind, but not so much Nebbiolo. So, Tiziana, let's now talk about the wines. And you have a video to show of your vineyards and also Alessandro's vineyards in Rocche dell'Annunziata. So, if you could share that with us.
Yes, sure. And so, as we were talking about the altitude, I think with this video we can really see what we were telling before, what we were talking before. Only a moment. I arrive. Only a moment.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. Up here we are on our southeasterly exposure, so not the Rocche dell'Annunziata, but the San Martino Hill.
Okay, it's not on yet. The video is not on yet. So.
Sorry.
The video is not on yet.
The video is not yet.
No.
I'm sorry. Oh my God. Okay. Now, yes.
No. We'll give it one more try. If it doesn't come up, it doesn't come up. But
yeah, I try with another.
Prova ad andare da sotto su share screen, sotto nei pulsanti in basso dove vedi la chat, e da lì cliccando ti si
io ho fatto condividere.
Okay, there you are.
Now it's working.
Yes, now it's fine.
It's fine now. Okay. Everybody are seeing it?
Yes.
Yes.
It's working, Tom?
Yes, it is.
Okay, great.
That's what we're seeing here.
So we are now on the top of the hill, San Martino. The red house here that you can see is where I was born when my grandparents established in 1943. And now we are turning around this hill, and this is the direction. So the lower part is Rocche dell'Annunziata. So here is the lower part of our vineyards that I told you before, that is around 250 and 270 meters on the sea level. And this is the much more dry clay and blue marl exposures. So this is 1.5 hectares.
Okay. And what direction? What direction are we looking here?
Sorry?
Are we looking south now or east or what are we looking?
Yes, we are looking in that this direction is totally south-southwesterly exposure.
Okay.
And in front, so we can see here one of the amphitheater we have in La Morra, because you can see in front of us we have Borgata Torriglione, and this is Brunate and Cerecchio up here. So
Okay.
this part of Rocche dell'Annunziata is really closed. It's really protecting these exposures are really protecting each other from cold winds, and the microclimate is really different from our higher point. So our vineyards, okay, are up to this little road again, and we are in this higher part till here, till this road, and where does this White House are the vineyards from Alessandro. So as you can see, it's all Rocche dell'Annunziata, but it's totally different, both the microclimate, both the exposure. And then we continue up here, and this is our higher point. This is the cellar, right side. So here is the cellar, and this is not from us, this vineyard, but this higher one is part of Rocche dell'Annunziata for around 6,000 meters. And
Okay.
this is on the top of the hill, 320 meters.
Let me ask Alessandro real quick in that video. We're going to talk about your Bricco Francesco. Bricco is the top of the hill. Was that part of that in that video, or?
Yeah, well, it was a little bit on the left of the house, and then we decided many years ago to manage this vineyard alone and make the fermentation. And usually we make also harvest a little bit later, because we understood that wait sometime 1 week more give more complexity to this wine. For many years we decided to do this wine separate. Is always Rocche dell'Annunziata, and we realized 7-8 years ago that is much more important to release this wine a little bit later, and we started release this parcel like a reserva. And we are really happy, because we understood that when we have both wine, the Rocche dell'Annunziata and the single vineyard in the single vineyard, Bricco Francesco and Rocche dell'Annunziata released together, we understood that this part was not ready. Needs more time for aging. And then starting 2009, we decided to have a little bit more aging. Also, we restarted with Bricco Francesco the fermentation with the cap into the wine many years ago. That was an experience a little bit back. For many years, we stopped the fermentation with the cap into the wine, and now we are going to do again with a nice result. And the Bricco Francesco usually ferment for 3 weeks, and after that we put the cap into the wine for another 10 days when it's possible, and we release the wine 6 years after the harvest. Okay,
I just put a picture of the bottle there. We had people holding up bottles before, but sometimes it's much better to put it on the screen there. So the current vintage, or the vintage you just released, we're going to talk about, it's 2013.
2013 now, yes.
Right. And we also have the 2016, the classic bottling.
Rocche dell'Annunziata, yes.
Tell us about the differences in those two wines and in the two vintages. So,
the vintages, in my opinion, but it's my personal feeling, 2013 is a little bit different than all the other wines that we produce in the last 8 to 10 years, because it was really warmer than other harvest, and we had a very nice season, but also a little bit early harvest in 2013. And then tannin are a little bit softer and round than other vintages, and personally remind me a little bit of 2009 in our area.
Okay.
With a soft acidity, wine very well balanced, and a little bit more approachable also in the first time of the life. And then our 2013 shows really open in the perfume, the aroma is very open, very easy to understand. And also the Reserva has a tight tannin, but at the nose you feel very well the characteristic of the single vineyard. This part of balsamic sensation is a little bit more approachable and open now. And then sensation that is sometimes menthol, sometimes eucalypto, that is very rich in this wine, more than in our Barolo Rocche dell'Annunziata when we released the wine 4 years after the harvest.
Okay. And how old are the vines that you use for Bricco Francesco?
At the moment, the vines are around 40 years, are the oldest vines that we have, because we decided to renew 80% of our vineyards starting 1995 to 2004. We renew these vineyards with new clones, always Lampia, but we new Nebbiolo clones, and a little bit high density, not extreme, but we have, is not really deep, our area is possible manage around 4,800 vines per hectare. And then in the past we had really less, we had 3,500 vines per hectare. And then with this density, we work very well.
Okay. Tiziana, we're going to discuss your 2012 Reserva today from Rocche dell'Annunziata. Tell us about the 2012 vintage.
Yeah, the 12th vintage was different, speaking about the climatic conditions, for example, compared to 16. So in 2012, we got an unusual winter. November and December were really milder than average. And the coldest temperatures arrived a little later than usual, between end of January and beginning of February. But then we got really colder temperatures and heavy snowfalls. So this contributed to create good water reserves to the soil, to the ground. Compared to 16, there was no water stress, no big problem of diseases. The quantity sometimes were reduced due to the rain at the moment of flowering. And so consequently, we got a smaller number of berries per cluster. Personally, we did less green harvesting, as for us was not an abundant vintage. So this is my personal opinion, and then because of my wines, considering that in 2012, I didn't get the same ale I got in 2016, for example. Okay. In 16, end of July, we got a little bit of ale, around 50% in Rocche dell'Annunziata and 20% on the San Martino Hill, on the southeasterly exposure. In 2012, we didn't get ale, but we were under production naturally, so we didn't do green harvesting, a lot of green harvesting. And our Reserva 12 is a selection we did from the beginning. So from the older vineyards we own in Rocche dell'Annunziata. So this was the Reserva was selected from vineyards 35 to 42 years old. Okay.
Are you going to also produce a 2013 Reserva?
No, we are a bit strange with our Reserva. Okay. So the previous one was 2009, Then we jumped to Riserva 12, and the next one will be 2016. I don't know if you, so we can release a Riserva after minimum 5 years of aging
Right.
in our cellar. We can decide even to produce a Riserva during these 5 years if we find a special barrel. We can do a Riserva even if we didn't name it from the beginning, but we can name it Riserva after 5 years. Our Riserva is done from a selection of grapes in the moment of harvest. So that's the reason that when we find these interesting grapes from the older vineyards and we see clearly the vintage that is satisfying us, we produce a Riserva. But the Riserva is a selection only from the older vineyards.
Okay. Let me switch to Paolo. You also produce a Riserva, but today we're going to focus on your Comune di Serralunga wine and also your Meriame, both from 2016. Tell us the difference on these two wines.
Yes, really is the difference is very, very interesting only in the age of the vineyard. For the system to produce in the vinification, in the vertical fermentation, in the temperature is quite the same, but the most important characteristic is the Serralunga is same vineyard in Meriame area, but the vineyard is around 25-30 years old. Is a vineyard not younger, but relatively more younger than Meriame. And really with the new clone, the new characteristic of clone of Barolo, really the characteristic of Serralunga is very fine, elegant wine. Really, sometime in the 16 is quite unusual for it's really looking, the characteristic of the wine is so elegant and so fine with the complex tannin, but with elegant expression. And looking the evolution in the time is very slow, but evolving in very, very elegant style. Really is the difference of the production of Barolo Meriame Cru. Really the vineyard 70 years old is the vineyard plant with the grandmother and grandfather of Luisella vineyard in the 48, 49 with a very, very old clone, old traditional clone, but with good density is quite unusual for the vineyard are planted in the very, very good way. And now in the 99, I decided to not remove the vineyard, but I decided to maintain the vineyard in the best way. I looking to work very hard work in the vineyard for the maintain the real production, the very real small production, and the old vineyard really produce a very, very low quantity. Sometimes in some years the normal production of Barolo is around to 8 tons for hectares, and sometimes it produce for Meriame between 4 and 5 tons for hectares.
Very low. Okay.
Really in natural way. Yes, sometimes is looking in 16 you have a quite good production, is make one passage for the reduce a little bit in the green harvest the production, but really is remove less than 5% of the production. The real characteristic of the vineyard produce very low quantity of grape. And the natural, the concentration is in inversal proportion, is a very, very strong, is a very, very strong natural concentration in the grapes. And really is very, very interesting for the Serralunga, probably is make more the old style character of Barolo. For the normally in the past, the production of Barolo is a little more higher, and looking the Barolo old style. Sometimes you have the brightening, and in the Serralunga is a more soft, elegant expression, but really the expression is more expression of old style Barolo.
Right.
And in the Mariame, you have a little more new expression, a little more younger expression, but not for the change the system to make wine, but just for the concentration, for the different reason, the same, the big change of the weather in the time, and for the real hard work in the vineyard for the keep the perfect grape. For the, in any case, is make a very, very interesting work for the not only green harvest, but pick up the grapes in the small basket, 20 kilo, and selected in the vineyard. After transport the grapes in the cellar, and put the grape basket for each basket in the turntable, and reselected 100% of the grapes. And really, with the two big selection of the grapes and the low natural production, the real final characteristic of the wine is so pure and strong in the natural way.
What other techniques are different? You have a wine that's got vines that are 25 years old,
yes,
commune, and then the Mariame is 75 years old. So
yeah,
what other cellar techniques are different when you produce these wines?
But really is sometimes the unique in the general idea the system is quite the same. Each vintage by vintage sometimes is change a little bit the day of fermentation. For the normally in the Serralunga, the day of fermentation is between 15 and 20 days. But sometime in the Mariame, with the more strong concentration, is growing a little bit in the time of maturation. And sometime is arrived to 22, 25 days, but depend of the years, not every year. For example, in 2016, the quality of the grapes are fantastic, and the selection are perfect, and is decided to put a little more time in the fermentation. But in any case, you have a 3-4 day different of fermentation of Serralunga with Mariame. Mariame a little more and Serralunga more. And in the another little difference in the system to age for the practically the Serralunga aging around to 75-80% in the big barrel, in the big cask, right. Slavonian oak between 15 and 20 hectoliters for 24, 26 months. Normally the Mariame is around to 26 months with 70% of big barrel and a little part in the Burgundy barrel, not barrique, but Burgundy barrel, 350 liters. Right. For the wine is so strong. In case you put a little bit in the Burgundy barrel with the barrel for Pinot Noir, is make a little more softer character in the wine. For the not put so many powerful to aging in the oak. For the really the powerful is the natural powerful of the grapes, and that's it.
Thank you, Veronica. We are looking at your 2016 Comune di Serralunga and also your Ornato Barolo. And let me say first of all that the wines are both lovely. Your Comune di Serralunga Barolo for 2016 is one of the best values I've tasted from this vintage, so congratulations on that, complimente. Now you work with, you actually source these grapes from the Comune di Serralunga from your best vineyards, right? From Ornato and Parafada and San Bernardo, see?
Yeah, and also we also buy the grapes from Gabuti and Serra.
Okay.
Are more, here in this area, there's still the tradition to buy the grapes, are more than 40 years that we buy the grapes from the same growers. we go to check different times during the year that everything is okay, and we go to harvest. So this is very important to select the quality of the grapes. The classic Serralunga is the Barolo that we also produce a little bit more in quantity, because the production is around 10,000 bottles. So comparing the single vineyard that we produce more or less 3,000 bottles each. And so usually we used to make, especially in our single vineyard, a kind of two harvest. So before the grape, usually from the central part of the vineyard, that are used to make the single vineyard Barolo, and then the high and the lower part that are used to make the classic Serralunga. So
Okay.
we don't blend the wine, but we will blend the grapes at the beginning.
I'm going to put up a picture of the Ornato vineyard here.
Yeah.
Beautiful picture. If you could tell us a little bit about this vineyard. Everybody knows Pio Cesare and Ornato.
Yeah.
But not many people know that you also produce a single vineyard here.
So you can see very well our part, that is that one in the central, and you can see that it's a little bit different from the vineyard around. It's just 1 hectare, full south exposition. Ornato is, regarding our Barolos, is my favorite because I think that is the maximum expression of Serralunga, and is one that have a big complexity, have this deepness, this structure, this earthness. But for me, it's the wine that make me happy in some way. It's very traditional, like all our wines. So we start with a long fermentation temperature control of 1 month in stainless steel. Then malolactic fermentation in concrete barrel, and then again in concrete barrel for more or less 6 months. Usually in the month of June, July, we move the wine in the aging. So 2 years in big barrel French oak, usually 2,800 liters. And after that, we use the bottle and keep 1 year in the bottle before that we start to sell. A little bit different to the Serralunga, in the way the vinification is exactly the same, but we age the classic Barolo Serralunga in big barrel Slovenian oak that are more than 40 years old. So don't give too much taste of wood to the wine, but leave a little bit to express the characteristic of the grape. That's because, especially on the classic Serralunga, we try to focus also in the drinkability. That this don't mean that the wine will have a shorter life comparing the other ones, but it's wine that you can also enjoy today. And this, I think, that is a very important thing, especially because I personally love to drink young Barolo. So a little bit softer. Of course, the Ornato is completely different in this way. So it's not, so today the 2016 is very complex, but it's a wine that, of course, need more time. In 3-4 years, it will change completely. It will become more soft and more round, but have a deepness, have a structure that is in some way completely different. So the Serralunga is a Barolo that gives the idea of what the Barolo from Serralunga is, but at the same time is a little bit softer comparing the single vineyard.
Okay, so we're all on the same wavelength here. This photo of Ornato is south of the village of Serralunga, which is the big tower, the square tower. So we're looking north in this photo, correct?
Yeah. You can see also the San Bernardo over there. That is the vineyard where we produce the Riserva. That is the vineyard just on the shoulder of the Ornato.
Okay, I have a picture of San Bernardo here as well that we'll put up.
Yeah. It's a little bit different because it's a southeast exposition. It's the only vineyard of our cellar that don't have a full south exposition. Yeah, that is the San Bernardo. It starts with the southeast and at the end is quite a full east. So completely different comparing the Ornato also, if are not so far.
Okay, and I'm going to go back to that picture of Ornato, but one of the last times I visited there with you, but like a year before that, I was with someone else. I just wanted to stop and get a photo on that little orange house that says Pio on it.
Yeah.
There was a little black dog there that was just barking its head off.
Yeah.
Is he still there?
Yeah, he's on the other side of the road. Yeah, he's always there.
He's a sweet dog, but he just loves to bark to people, so I guess so. Okay, but you can see just from these two photos why anyone would fall in love, why I've fallen in love with the Barolo zone, especially, wherever, but this is just, I think, the most beautiful vineyards in Italy. So, and it just so happens that all four of you, I'm happy to say, are traditional producers. and I have to applaud you for that. So I just wrote an article where I interviewed Marco Sabellico from Gambero Rosso, and he talked about the movement away from barriques. He sees that less and less every year. So I really applaud that. And when we talk about terroir, we talk about varietal character that comes out, emerges a lot more when you make it in a traditional way. So we have a few minutes for some questions. John had some nice comments there, and anyone else? Otherwise, we'll have Julia talk a little bit. So Veronica, did you have a video you wanted to show, or you mentioned that?
No, because John was asking that he would like to see the map of Serralunga to see how far was the Ornato and the Parafada. But I have just the paper one, so I don't have a file.
Okay.
So it's
yeah, it's not going to show up well on the screen.
Yeah.
That's all right. But and well, we have a few minutes. How 2020 is wrapped up, and we won't talk about anything else but wine. But how did the vintage go? And any of you for 2020? What was the harvest like? Paolo, Alessandro, this year, 2020.
For me, 2020 is really unexpected vintage for the really in the 2020 have a lot of problem, and looking in the first time looking the weather, you have some lot of rain and sun and rain and sun is looking. I hope is the vintage that the here is not very good for the situation, and the same I'm not sure the harvest is so good. And after at the moment you start go to the vineyard, looking the real in our vineyard, looking the very low quantity in grape, but incredible quality in the quality of the grape. And looking the quality of the grape is more higher than my expectation. Not only in Nebbiolo, but same in Barbera, in Dolcetto. And really have probably the situation is completely different than 16. For the in 16 you have a very special years with the temperature and all very good in good level, very constant. Good temperature in the summer, in the spring, in the winter. Perfect for the in 2020 you have a more up and down. You have a more like high temperature and a lot of rain, high temperature and rain, but the average, the final average of the quantity of the water and the quantity of the sun and the temperature are very similar to the perfect vintage. And that really is a different system to put the temperature and the water, but really the average is quite very good, and this is the final result in the quality of the grapes and the quality of fermentation, and the final quality of the wine is more higher than my expectation.
Okay, Alessandro, any thoughts on 2020 and the growing season?
Yes, we had a very early flowering in 2020. It was a surprise because it was really early, and also was not easy manage this vintage for us because we didn't have employees from other country that arrive for help, and then we work really very hard, and then the quality was always at the first. We realized that the harvest was a really nice harvest because with this early flowering, we had also the possibility to have a nice growing season. And then in summertime, June, July, also we had this kind of rain and then temperature up and down. We didn't have a very high temperature. I think only 1 week with the temperature over 30, 31 degrees. That was not really hot. And harvest time was easy, was nice because we had a nice temperature. And then we expect a little bit more quantity in the vineyards. At the end, after the harvest, we realized that produce a little bit less than the usual quantity. but the result is really, really nice. We just tasted last week the wines that finished the malolactic fermentation. We are going to put the wine in barrel now, and then the result is incredible. Very fresh, a nice freshness and fruity sensation for all the wines. And then we had a good quantity of alcohol, but not incredible height for Nebbiolo. Always Barbera was really generous this year again, but for Nebbiolo we had a very balanced alcohol, 14.2, 14.3, not 14.3, not too height. Okay. And then the balance for this wine is really nice.
Great. Tiziana, just very briefly, what was 2020 like for you in the vineyard?
Yeah, it's so for us, due to these vineyards in Rocche dell'Annunziata, particularly in Rocche dell'Annunziata, that are in this special microclimate that is really protected and hot, we needed to pick up the grapes really earlier than average. So we began in Rocche dell'Annunziata in the lower part that I showed you before, around middle September, to avoid to arrive to more than 14.5 in alcohol. So we did a samples of the grapes. We checked in laboratory because I saw that these vineyards were really over ripeness, and so we did really earlier than regular, than normally. The result, as Alessandro told, great, but really lower production for us, so around 30% less than the regular production. 30% is here, but the result really great. So 2020 will be really great vintage.
Great.
Veronica. A lot of freshness, a lot big structure.
Thank you, Veronica. And just briefly, how was 2020 in Ornato and Parafara and San Bernardo?
Yeah, we were very happy. We are also very happy about the qualities, of course. Yes, at the beginning, it seems that the quantity was biggest comparing the other years, but in the moment of the harvest, I think everybody of us discovered that was not that really. And so, yeah, it was a surprise on that way. At the end, we discovered that the quantities were lower than what we suggest at the beginning. So everybody talked in the area that was vintage with a big quantity. But at the end, but the quality is very high. So this is the important thing. So we are happy.
Thank you. Julie, did you want to say anything as we close?
Thank you very much. I just want to say thank you to you, of course, first of all, for organizing all that with us. And the last thing I forgot at the beginning, all the videos are on a YouTube channel. You can find them. So if you lost some appointments, it will be a great occasion to go on YouTube channel of Tom and check it out. So I hope to see you in 2020. Thank you.
We all hope we can be there. So I really appreciate all of the producers, not only in these last few today, but all 5 webinars we did. You all appeared twice. We all have a glass of Barolo here. I salute all of you. Thank you. And I am building my cellar even more. I mean, I'm getting rid of some Tuscan wines, but I'm kidding. But and keeping Piemontese wines, but especially Barolo. But so many great finishes lately, and I just want to thank all of you for such great work. And I certainly hope we get to see you soon if the EU ever lets us in. But there's a lot of things that have to happen. But Buon Natale, Felice Anno Nuovo, andrà tutto bene.
Speriamo.
Grazie.
Ciao.
Thank you.
Okay.
Salute.
Salute. Ciao.
Thank you again.
Salute.
Ciao, cheers. Thanks a lot.
Buona giornata a tutti. Ciao ciao.
Grazie. Ciao.